My experience here performing in London at the Coliseum for the very first time was just so wonderful. I just felt such a warmth from the audience, from the company, working with the State Ballet of Georgia and Nina, and my amazing partner, Misha. It's just been such an amazing experience, and I've just been enjoying every minute of it. So I actually had a conversation with my director, Miss Susan Jaffe, and she mentioned to me Nina would love to invite me to come perform Swan Lake with her company here at the London Coliseum. So that's how she invited me. And I believe it was after my debut premiere of Swan Lake at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. with ABT. That's how she found me and invited me to come perform Swan Lake. So my primary coach for premiering Swan Lake was Susan Jaffe. She taught me everything I needed to know about the role, the steps, how to interpret the role of Odette Odile and have the contrast between the characters. So she really spent day in and day out coaching me, all the small details, everything about the role, leading up to my premiere back in February. But then ever since my first performance, I've just been working out small details or what I want to work on, for the next performance. Because following my debut, I performed my New York debut at the Metropolitan Opera House this summer. So then from there, that was another big leap of different things I wanted to work on, what my interpretations, and then of course she helped me prepare for coming to London to perform. I feel that it was a bit easier for me to portray Odette, her vulnerability, her sadness. It was just a much easier character to develop. I did have a little bit, I wouldn't say struggle, but it was a bit harder time to create the Odile aspect, the sensuality, the seduction. But once I found that feeling, it was just so much fun, and I enjoyed portraying Odile, and it was such a different character compared to Odette. So it's nice to have that contrast, the vulnerable, sweet, sad Odette, and then the seduction of Odile, just very different. I not necessarily ever get worried about technique per se. It's more of like stamina and getting through the ballet, because second act is very hard, as in heavy wise. Port de bras, the upper body, almost like the cramping of the feet, because everything is so slow and so detailed. But then Black Swan is just pure stamina and adrenaline. So again, it's another different contrast between that aspect of the two roles, and just finding a balance of both of them and being able to get through the ballet without struggling too hard was a bit more on what I was worried about. But I know myself, and I know how it would be okay. But that was the one thing I worried about. And then of course here performing in London was the first time I danced a different version of the Odile variation. So I'm used to doing the longer version, which starts off with the triple pirouette, or pirouette into double attitude, or however many. So I'm used to doing that version, but then coming here, I had to prepare a different variation, which has a different accent and different intensity to it. But I enjoyed working on it and doing something different. So the costumes I wore were from ABT, both White Swan and the Black Swan. I personally just adore both costumes. The White Swan has a little bit, in the very center, it has a little red accent color in the tutu and then also in the headpiece. And I feel it almost represents like the beak of a swan, the color. Because swans are white, of course, but they have just that little accent of color in their face. And I feel like the tutu has a really beautiful way of showing that look, that this is a bird and this is what she looks like. So growing up, I was the only ballet dancer out of my two brothers, so the three of us. They don't do ballet, neither of them, and neither does my father. But I grew up with ballet, watching my mom on VHS and her working with Orlando Ballet, which is where I trained and worked with my whole life. So I've just been around ballet my whole childhood, and I was put in ballet when I was little, and I just stuck with it. And when I got older, I started to really love dance and love performing and being on stage and preparing different solos and variations and everything. So it's always been in my blood, I believe, and I've just grown a passion for it as I got older. My mom was a soloist with ABT back in the 90s, before I was born. When she got pregnant with me, that is when she left ABT. So I was never in the ballet scene, with ABT as a child, but I did grow up watching it, and I did visit ABT quite a few times when I was little. So in 2017, I competed at the Youth American Grand Prix finals in New York City. And I won the second prize, silver prize, for the junior division. Yes, I was 15 years, I was 15 years old. And from then, well, first of all, I've competed in YHP quite a few years, and I've always just had an amazing experience, performing on stage, getting to do contemporary solos and different ballet solos, and just working, having the working process over a few months leading up to the performance. So I always had an amazing experience at YHP. And then from this finals in New York, I was actually offered to come compete at the Prix de Lausanne competition the following year in Lausanne, Switzerland, which again was another amazing experience. This was my first time traveling to Europe and performing on a European stage. It was a raked stage, and that was my first time dancing on a rake stage, which was very interesting. But again, that was another amazing experience. I met so many dancers from all over the world who I am still connected with today, and met so many teachers from all over the world, different companies, different organizations. That's when I met Nina for the very first time. She was president of the board of the Prix de Lausanne my year, so that was my very first time meeting and speaking with her. So I did the third, I believe it's the third shade variation from Le Bayadere, the dun, da dun, da dun, da dun, the slow one. So that's what I competed with. And I did a contemporary solo named Solo from Diego, which originally was for the male division, but the year I competed, it was the first time that they brought it for the female division, and I really enjoyed it. I wore like a tie and a white crisp shirt. It was really fun. I really liked it. From competing in the Prix de Lausanne in Switzerland, I was actually offered a contract with ABT Studio Company for the following season, which I was so incredibly excited for because ABT has always been my dream. I mean, I did many, many years of summer intensive programs leading up to that. And of course, watching my mom be in ABT, it's always been my dream. So I was very excited to join ABT the following season. However, after the competition ended, I think about 2 weeks after the competition was finished, I got a call from Miss Katie Leiden, who was the director of ABT Studio Company at the time, and she offered me a contract right away for, I think it was move to New York in 10 days. So I was like, absolutely. I think because they needed somebody to fill in a space. There was one missing dancer. So I said yes, and I moved to New York, and it was amazing. But I was very grateful for Miss Katie Leiden and also Miss Cynthia Harvey, who was there at the Prix de Lausanne, who offered me for the following year. When I was in Studio Company, actually was I felt all the roles that I performed and all the ballets that I did really set me up very well for joining the main company. I did different types of repertoire, contemporary, classical, neoclassical. I did a lot of group work, so it was great to familiarize myself with working with other people, as a union. And then, of course, doing different types of pas de deux work. I did don-cue, pas de deux. I did the variations, coda, fouettes. I did tarantella from Balanchine's Tarantella. I did Padakshan Gamzati from Bayadere. I did a wide variety of repertoire, which really, I think, enhanced my growth before joining the main company. And it prepared me, because when you join the main company, you don't necessarily dance as much as you do in the studio company. But I really felt that I grew as a dancer and artist during those times, the year and a half I was in ABT Studio Company. So my first actually major ballet and role was in one of Alexei Ratmansky's ballets named Bernstein in a Bubble, which was created during the pandemic in one of the bubble projects that ABT created. So actually I wasn't casted to perform in that season. This was the first season back after the pandemic, so it was a big season. I just joined the company as a corps de ballet. I was in the company for 3 weeks. Of course, I was an apprentice and I did the studio company during the pandemic, but this was my first big season. And I was understudying the principal role in this shorter ballet. But again, it was a very complex and difficult ballet, the movement, the quality. I personally just loved it so much. But this was my first big ballet in the main company, and the first cast dancer got injured, so I was the second cast learning it. So Alexei trusted me and entrusted me and put me in the ballet, And I learned it and I rehearsed it, and just working with him was just so amazing. I just admire his movement quality and his dynamic, and how demanding he is, but in such a gentle and caring way. And I loved working with him in that short period of time, and I felt that that ballet really grew me. Again, another level of growing as an artist and working with the company, because I was dancing with principal dancers, soloists, and other senior dancers in the company, so I was already very intimidated, working in this type of environment, but I felt very comfortable and I felt very welcomed, not only by Alexei, but also with the dancers in the company. I danced at the Nervi Dance Festival with YAGB, and I performed a pas de deux created by Brady Farrar. It is named Night Falls. And it's a really beautiful, intimate pas de deux between two artists, and I just love the atmosphere and the vibe of the ballet. This was my first time dancing it. Of course, not my partner's first time, but I felt that dancing in Nervi and in the outdoor atmosphere was just the perfect vibe for this particular ballet. It was just very intimate. It was dark outside, the lighting. It was just the perfect mood. And I actually loved the stage in Nervi, the outdoor theater. My mom is Chinese, she's from Shanghai, and my dad is from South Africa. So I'm half Chinese. I've been quite a few times, a lot in my childhood. But actually, ABT toured to China for 2 weeks this past November. We were a week in Shanghai and then a week in Beijing. We performed a wide variety of repertoire, from Giselle to Killian's Petite Mort, Etudes, and quite a few other things. So I really loved performing in China with ABT, even though I've been multiple times, but I love the audiences there. They're very enthusiastic, and the stages were so beautiful, especially in China. In Beijing, we performed at the Egg, that's what it's called, the big theater in Beijing, and it was very nice, and I hope to go back soon. I don't speak very well Chinese. I used to when I was little. Because I lived with my Chinese grandparents, so they spoke a lot of Chinese to me and my siblings. But as I got older, we always spoke English in my house, so my Chinese is not great. But I really hope to learn more, so then I can travel to China and speak with their native language to everyone there. But I'm pretty good about getting around. I'm very good at moving around the city on my own, trying to communicate. I know a few phrases, so it's not too bad. I love all types of dance, especially classical ballet. At ABT we do a lot of, sometimes we do Balanchine work, we do other works, ones that are mainly focused on just movement and dance. But ABT is mostly known for their full-length ballets like Swan Lake, Romeo and Juliet. We just did Onegin this past summer. So these full-length dramatic ballets that tell a story. And I personally love that kind of dance, because not only do you get to dance and express your emotions, but you get to portray a character or become somebody that you are not. And I find that just so fascinating and so interesting. And I feel that that is what makes ABT really unique, as a company, is that we really focus on that aspect of the ballet, which is just as important as the technique, the fouettes, the turns, the jumps, the high legs. I think that is very important, and I really admire that in a ballet, and I really try to focus on bringing the story and the character to whatever role you're doing. Like for Swan Lake, you have to portray Odette and Odile. It's two very different characters, but portraying both in a different, unique way is very important. And then, we have ballets like Onegin, where Tatiana is just such a complex story. The pas de deux, they're just so beautiful, the music, but just as important that is also portraying Tatiana herself and, just your own individuality in the role. So I feel like that's what ABT is about. Well, I do hope to travel and perform more in Europe. I just adore Europe in general. I've never been to a lot of countries, so I hope to travel there and perform there soon. This has just been an amazing experience performing in London for the first time as a principal, and then as a guest artist. This was my first major ballet. I always have a cup of coffee before I go on stage. I know it sounds crazy. I know a lot of people get very jittery before shows, but I always love to have either like an iced coffee or like a cappuccino. I might not necessarily drink the whole thing, but just to sip on as I'm doing my hair, my makeup, everything. I always try to have fun on stage and just be myself and have a connection with the audience and with the dancers on stage. I think that's very important, you know, to be a union in that aspect.